Okay, sorry about that technical difficulties. So, the next round we have, yan, pineapple on pizza. Again, if you agree with the statement, say dope. If you don't agree, say nope. Ayan. So, ang dami ng dope agad. Ayan. Dope, dope, dope. Yan. Very Filipino, no? Halos lahat dope. Sige, ano natin. Joanna. Okay, Nicole. Why do you think pineapple is good on pizza?
Ma'am, rinig po ba ako?
Yes, na.
Ma'am, personal reason lang po kasi favorite ko po kasi yung pineapple eh. So parang ang sarap niya po talaga kapag nasa pizza po. Ganun po.
Okay. So talagang ano, again, personal preference and opinion natin and of course our own personal taste. So sabi naman ni sabi ni Pearly, nope daw. Okay. So Pearly, why don't you like pineapple on pizza?
Kasi ayaw ko lang po talaga ng pineapple. Tsaka 'pag yung mga pineapple po kasi dito maasim. Kaya parang hindi po
Mm.
bagay sa pizza. Kasi maalat po gano'n. May onting
Okay.
tamis.
You don't like the mixing of sweet and salty. Okay. So again, our personal preference. So next prompt, we have, Jollibee is better than McDonald's. Ayan, mga Jollibee and McDonald's stands. Ayan, dope. Nope. Nako. Ayan. Mukhang mahahati ang 11 Joshua. And, dope, nope. Yes, queen. Ayan. So let's start with the nope first. Let's see. Justine, why do you think that Jollibee isn't better than McDonald's?
It's more of a personal preference din po. Um, I grew up liking McDonald's more than Jollibee po.
Yes, and that's a valid justification, no? If you grew up liking something more than another thing. And then, of course, sige, Caitlyn, dahil nagpa-yes queen ka dyan. Dahil may pa-yes queen ka, ayan.
Ako naman po, still ganun pa rin, personal preference. But, every time po kasi, I mean every month, siguro nasawa na din ako kasi like every single day, McDo po talaga ang sinaserve here sa amin because ayun yung gusto ng mga sisters ko. But I don't like their burgers. There's something about that's very disgusting sa burgers nila. I don't know why. I always like the Yum Burger. Like, the 38 pesos one lang. I don't know. Basta kadiri yung burger ng McDo. That's all.
Okay. So, more on, again, personal preferences. Okay, so baka magsimula pa tayo ng fast food wars dito sa bahay. Sa ating classroom. So I'll impede this by giving you the next prompt. Next, ayan na, another wars, network wars naman. GMA is better than Kapamilya Network. I believe this is their new name, di ba? Yes, KFC. Ayan, dope, nope. Ayan, ang daming nope. Ayan, ang daming nope. Oh, so much nope. Okay, sige. Since it's mostly nope, let's hear from Carl Evan. Carl Evan, why is GMA not better, or why do you think that this statement is wrong, or why do you disagree with this statement? Ano si Carl? Carl, kung naririnig mo ako, pakigalaw yung baso, nak. Ayan. Kasi ma'am, nako-cornyhan. Okay. So that's again valid reason. That's our own opinion, no. It is evidence na ang GMA, they are very repetitive with their storylines. Kaya na predictable na rin yung nila, yung kanilang mga nagka-amnesia si ate, ganyan-ganyan. Tapos, akala mo magkikita na silang dalawa pero hindi pa pala. Ganon. Mga ano. So that's, again, a valid opinion on your part. And I think this is the last prompt. I hope that everyone will answer for this. Meron pa. This is the second to the last. So the last prompt is, you don't need labels in a relationship. Okay. So, dope or nope, mga anak? Let's see. Let's have nope, nope. Ayan, ang dami. Mostly the girls, no? Kailangan, hindi. Kailangan may label. Okay. Ayan. Nope. Ayan. Nope nga, ma'am. Caitlyn, pinaglalaban talagang kailangan ng labels sa relationship. I wanna hear from the boys' side. Bakit puro girls lang ang sumasagot? Ayan. Is our boys, do you have any ano? Okay. So sa girls, I can say na it's sort of a universal it's sort of a universal thing for women na kailangan alam natin yung standing in any relationship, not just like in a romantic relationship. Like if you're friends, ano yung status niyo? Are you friends? Are you acquaintances? 'Di ba? And of course, in a romantic relationship, it's very problematic kung wala kayong label kasi that could be a cause na hindi naman tayo boyfriend and girlfriend so I can flirt with other, 'di ba? Okay, so I think we can be all in agreement na we do need labels in a relationship. Yeah. So I didn't hindi ko na kayo pag-i-explainin, baka mamaya 2 hours tayo dito lang sa prompt na ito. Okay? So why are we talking about these types of issues or what these types of opinions today? Of course, have you observed that there are differences in Ma'am, alam mo po ba kung bakit po? Okay, Caitlyn. May isi-share yata si Caitlyn. Okay. So, bakit kailangan ng label sa relationship? For me personally, I believe that there is a certain commitment to a relationship. And if you don't label that certain relationship, the commitment means less. Kasi yun nga, pag sinabi ko na, pag sinabi ni Guy na, wala naman tayong label, hindi naman kita girlfriend, so I can flirt or I can go out with other girls because that personally has happened to me. 'Di ba? May mga ganong instances. So, girls, boys, everything in between, label your relationships. Label everything, 'di ba? Pati yung feelings, i-label nyo yan. If it's love, it's love. If it's not, it's not. It's okay. Diba? Caitlyn, do you have anything to share before we move on to the meat of our lesson?
Gusto ko lang sabihin, ma'am, na girls deserves label kasi magaganda kami. That's
Truly.
it, period.
Yes, wag kayong maniniwala na hindi alam naman natin yung nararamdaman natin para sa isa't isa, wag na natin lagyan ng label. Lagyan niyo ng label. Okay? Kaya bumili ako ng label maker. O, di ba ang corny ni Ma'am Jade? Okay. So, going on to our lesson. So, we talked about these topics, these polarizing topics, for one reason and one reason only. We're going to talk about writing a position paper. So, earlier on, you saw that even in the smallest and the shallowest of, like, putting raisins in macaroni salad, you had differing and opposing opinions about that. So what more pa about deeper and bigger issues in our society? So writing a position paper is a way for us to express those opinions of differing sides in an academic and formal way. So before that, I'm sorry if they're not written down, but we do have the objectives of our lesson. Of course, the first is that you will be able to identify and define our position paper. Okay. The next objective is that you will be able to cite and use different pieces of information as evidence to support your arguments in a position paper. And lastly, of course, you're going to be able to write your very own position paper on a topic of your choosing. Okay, so those are our 3 objectives for this lesson. Okay, so let's go on. Let's first define a position paper. A position paper is a written proposition of stance on an issue by way of sound and logical arguments supported with evidence. So, isa-isahin natin. I-break down natin itong first sentence. First, written proposition of stance. Okay? That's the first phrase. Written, meaning it is not sung, it is not danced, it is not performed, it is not spoken, it is written. Diba? So, when we say a proposition of stance, it is you proposing and or presenting your stance or belief on a certain issue. Okay? So, for example, divorce is one of the social issues. Hindi naman social issues. It is one of the legal issues that we are facing, whether we should legalize or whether we should allow married couples to be divorced. Kasi there is a difference between annulment and divorce. If you didn't know, annulment is a very lengthy and very expensive process. Here in the Philippines, you will have to spend upwards of 1/4 of a million, 250 pesos, 250,000 pesos, if you want your marriage to be annulled legally. And even then, the legalities of that is not finalized kasi um, the annulment entails na hindi talaga nangyari yung marriage. 'Di ba? And so parang legally ang daming documents na kailangan mag-shift. So sa divorce naman, you're just parting ways. Legally, you've been married before, so you have parted ways. And it's supposedly a free, so it's less expensive. So what so if you're writing a position paper on that sort of issue, doon nyo ilalahad. Okay? You're going to present that issue, or you're going to present your opinion on that issue. Just like what you did earlier when we were talking about the small topics or the small polarizing topics. Okay? So, the next part is by way of sound and logical arguments. Okay, supported with evidence. So, sound and logical arguments mean that when we say something is sound and logical, it is foolproof. When we say foolproof, there is evidence. Ayan, oh, ayan. It is supported with evidence. It is supported by logical thinking. So, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na I do not believe in COVID because COVID is fake. When there is evidence supporting that COVID is very, very real. 'Di ba? Kasi may mga conspiracy theories na nagsasabi, hindi, ano yan, sinasabi lang yan ng mga gobyerno, pero hindi naman talaga ganun kalala ang COVID. Because believe it or not, there are people who are saying that. Very, very uneducated and very loud people who prefer not to believe in the government. Diba? So, that is not sound and that is not logical. Why? Because there is evidence proving that COVID is very much real and that COVID is detrimental. Okay? Na talagang maraming naaapektuhan by this virus, by this pandemic. Okay? So when we say sound and logical, you are using your what? Your critical thinking with these arguments, with these opinions that you're expressing. Okay? So parang ano lang yan kanina 'di ba? Tinanong ko kuya, why don't you like pineapple on pizza? And sabi ni is that she doesn't like it because of the sour taste, because it does not go with the saltiness of the pizza, and that's sound and logical. Why? Because she's using her critical thinking to identify why she doesn't like this certain thing. Okay? Ganon din po dapat kayo. And there's evidence kasi nagbigay siya ng reason. Nagbigay siya ng evidence as to why she doesn't like that. Okay? So, yun po ang minimum, or that is the basic definition of a position paper. So, lagi natin tatandaan, okay? So, once you are presenting your proposition, your stance on an issue, it should be sound and logical and supported with evidence. Later on in the lesson, we'll be talking about how you're going to support your arguments with evidence. Next is, writing a position paper entails careful examination and deliberation of the issue on hand to present the sentiments. Okay, so, hindi pwedeng pagpumili tayo ng issue is kung ano lang yung trendy, ano lang yung, ay, okay, eto na lang pipiliin ko kasi eto yung una kong nakita sa Google. That's not something that we do in writing a position paper. When we are choosing or writing about a certain issue, we need to examine and deliberate whether or not this issue is worthy of writing about, is something that we actually want to fight for, is something that we have a strong opinion on. Okay? Bakit kailangan strong yung opinion namin, ma'am? Kasi in the past, in the reaction paper, in the critique paper, we only had to have an opinion. But in the position paper, you have to have a strong opinion that either agrees or disagrees with the issue. Kapipili ka na ng isang side lang sa position paper. That's why you need to have a strong opinion, and that's why you really need to research and you really need to know more about that issue. Because if you don't know anything or if you don't know much about a certain issue, how are you going to give arguments? Diba? Parang ano lang yan eh. I know that you have already gone through debates in junior high. Even in elementary, I see that they are giving kids time to debate and discuss differing opinions. So, you already know that in a debate, you have to give proper evidences. You have to give proper reasoning. Eh kung wala kayong masyadong alam dun sa side na pinili nyo, di ba parang wala rin kayong maiaambag dun sa debate. Ganun po siya. In real life, we can akin or we can compare this to arguing with someone on the internet. 'Di ba? Parang pag nasa comment section nag-aaway na, alam mo kung sino yung walang masyadong alam dun sa, you can easily identify who doesn't know a lot about the issue being argued about when they start correcting the grammar, when they start correcting the spelling. Kasi yun na lang yung napapansin nila eh. Okay? So, I often recommend that if you're going to choose an issue for your position paper, choose something that you know a lot about and that you have strong opinions about. Diba? Ayan o. So, in examining an issue, you will be in tune with your own beliefs, your own values, and your own assumptions. Okay? If your values and beliefs, they tell you that divorce is wrong. Kasi ma'am, divorce is wrong because they have sworn in front of God and the church that they will love each other forever and they will be together through thick and thin to ganyan-ganyan. If that's your belief and your values, you don't have to change that just because you think that the reader will agree with you if you change your opinion. Kung ano yung opinion nyo now, that is still your opinion. Don't change your opinion just for your grade or for your reader. Okay? Because because the next description, remember that the main objective of a position paper is for you to air your views about an issue with the goal of convincing the reader. Okay? So, dito po, hindi naman fully convinced. We just need to make them consider. At the minimum, we need to make our readers consider that our opinion is valid and our opinion has weight. Kasi if you're a close-minded person, which unfortunately I have encountered throughout my life, 'di ba, even in the family and the personal settings, we encounter a lot of kapatid mo yun, Faith. Sorry, I was distracted. We have encountered a lot of close-minded people who believe that their opinions are concrete. Their opinions, kung ano lang yung opinion nila, yun lang yung tama. Okay? So, our goal in writing a position paper is to make sure that at least they consider our opinions as well as their own. Kung hindi mo natin sila mako-convince na, oo nga, tama nga, dapat nga illegalize ang divorce. Kahit paano, mapaisip natin, si reader natin na maybe there's validity in the legalization of divorce. Ganon. Okay? Kasi marami akong students in the past that they were very pressured with their position paper na, Ma'am, kailangan ba talaga pag nabasa nyo to, maniniwala na kayo agad na ganito, ganyan? Sabi ko, hindi anak. You just need to make me think of the validity of your ano. Although, ako, medyo biased na ako sa part 10 because I'm not a close-minded person. I like to listen to different opinions and get to know that opinion well. But, as I said before, um, we are all entitled to our own opinions and hindi kailangan yun nga totally convinced. Just make them rethink, reevaluate the validity of other opinions. Okay? So, what is that's the definition of the position paper. So, the purpose naman. So, what is the purpose of a position paper and how do we appeal to the audience of a position paper po dapat yan. Sorry, typo. Position paper. Let me correct that while I'm here. Ayan. Nangyayari po talaga yan sa live show. Nagkakamali po tayo ng okay. So, what is the purpose and how do we appeal to the audience of a position paper? First, position papers are written with the purpose of presenting your personal stance on an issue, just like I said before. Okay? And we try to what? Persuade the reader to take our sides or at least think or consider the validity of the other opinions. Okay? Your position paper would appeal to the logic of the readers. There are two ways we can appeal to the readers. First is by logic, by using sound arguments supported with evidence. Mostly if your reader is an educated academic person, they will listen to evidence more than anything. Okay? Hint, hint, dahil ako po ang magiging reader nyo, I will listen to evidence more than anything. Because I'm a firm believer is what you see. To see is to believe. So if there's proper evidence, if you show me proper evidence of your opinion, I will consider the validity of that. Okay, that's logic. Sometimes we use another appeal called the emotional appeal. Okay? So yan yung second way. We can appeal to the emotions but not to the point that we're using logical fallacies na ha. Remember, if it's too emotional, it is also called appeal to pity. And that could be somehow problematic for your argument. Okay? So how do we use the emotional side? If the arguments are anchored to the reader's sentiments and emotion and human interest level. When you say human interest level, these are the things that we as human beings experience, are interested in, or think of in general. So, for example, if women in general, okay, boys, I'm sorry, but sometimes as women, we face a certain degree of discrimination. Small amounts in everyday life. For example, I do have an older brother. And when I was younger, naiingit ako kay kuya kasi lagi siyang lumalabas siya, ganyan. Kahit mga 12:00 na siya umuwi, okay lang. Samantalang ako ang curfew ko 10, 9:30, ganon. And then I asked my father, sabi ko pa, bakit si kuya pwedeng gabihin, bakit ako hindi? Of course, now that's different kasi noon bata pa ako, ngayon I'm an adult. And she said, ang kuya mo kasi, hindi yan mabubuntis. I was like, what? Oh, 'di ba? Parang mas stricto lagi sa girls, 'di ba? Kasi first ganun yung it's a societal issue. And that's a universal human interest, 'di ba? The imbalance of let's say the everyday sexism, 'di ba? That's a universal human interest. Everyone, kahit mga lalaki, kahit rin yan. Boys, I believe that you've already experienced, some of you have experienced this. Lalaki ka, dapat malakas ka. O bakit ka umiiyak? Bakla ka ba? 'Di ba? saan nasasabi, biologically, saan nasasabi na kapag ang lalaki ay umiyak, mahina na agad siya? Di ba? So that's something that appeals to what? Your emotions. But it is still somewhat logical. Why? Because we are using, yes, we're using an emotional appeal, but we are also using evidence of what historically and universally happens. Okay? So, ganun po natin gagamitin ang emotional appeal. Hindi po tayo laging magpapaawa lang, kawawa naman ng mga babae. Yan, lagi na lang naaapi. Hindi po ganun. Okay? Hindi po ganun ang emotional appeal. Ang emotional appeal, yes, you're going to use emotional and sentimental arguments, but you're going to provide evidence of things that happen. Okay? Ayun I feel like some of you are already getting an idea of how you're going to write the paper. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay? So, last thing to remember about appealing to your audience is that addressing readers with whom you have an opposing views with, you need to consider their knowledge, values, and assumptions. If you want to address I always tell my students, write your position paper as if you're debating with someone. Okay? As if may isasagot sila sa inyo. Kasi if your mindset is that your reader will already agree with what you're saying, you will not defend your position effectively. But if your mindset is that, oh, Ma'am Jade will not agree with me right away. I need to convince her. I need to convince my reader. Okay? So, I need to what? You need to address their concerns. Okay, what does my reader already know about this topic? What do they value? Okay, yung mga balik tayo sa issue of divorce. Yung mga hindi naniniwala sa divorce, siguro ang values nila, they're very religious. 'Di ba? Ang values nila, they're very conservative. So how do I address those values? How do I make sure that I address those values and in a way that they also agree with me, that we are valuing the same thing? So for example, if they're from a conservative standpoint or a religious standpoint, divorce is wrong because of religious belief, ganyan, ganyan. You can say that, well, it's also wrong to say hurt your wife. Okay? In the Bible, you're not supposed to hurt your partner, whether it is your wife or your husband. 'Di ba? So you can use that as as addressing their values. But I do believe, and I do always tell my students that we shouldn't use the Bible as evidence kasi walang mananalo, mga anak. Alam nga namang i-refute ko yung evidence ng Bible, baka mamaya kumidlat biglang nawala na lang si Ma'am Jade, 'di ba? Wag naman. So, as much as possible, let's not use holy or not just the Bible, the Quran, the Torah, 'di ba? Any religious text, any text with religious connotation, let's not use those as evidence because it's hard to refute. Wala nang mananalo eh. It takes the interest out of the argument. Okay? Although ako personally, I do believe in the Bible, in God, in the higher power. But in the academic setting, I try to separate myself from that. So, ganun din ipapractice natin. Hindi ko sinasabing itapon nyo yung mga beliefs nyo, ha? Pero yun nga, religion and academics are not, they don't fall on the same Venn diagram sometimes. So, wag po natin gagamitin ang Bible or any religious text as our evidence. Next, ayan na. Steps in writing a position paper. So, how do we write a position paper? So, we have 7 steps. This is, again, more on forming your drafts of your position paper, forming the beginnings of your position paper. And then the last few steps is drafting na or actually writing the position paper. So first, of course, you have to choose an issue. Okay? Step 1, lagi, choose an issue or explore an issue. This step involves again listing possible issues and topics for your paper. You can skip listing the possible issues because I will be providing a list of pre-approved issues that you can choose from. Okay? So pipili na lang kayo doon. I think there are 5 or 6 issues na pwede yung pagpilian doon. But again, in choosing from those issues, broad issues pa lang yun eh. Kayo na ang mag-i-specify kung ano dun sa, for example, legalizing, one of the issues there is legalizing divorce in the Philippines. Are you pro or are you anti? So it's up to you to specify. I'm just going to give you general issues and topics. So first, another is in defining an issue, you must consider if it is SMART. Okay, the acronym SMART. It is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and within time constraints. First, specific. I'm already going to give you a list of generalized topics. Of course, you're going to specify. Hindi pwedeng divorce. Oh, tungkol saan sa divorce? The legalities of divorce, the causes of divorce, the effects of divorce. Okay? Whether or not you believe that divorce should be legalized. Okay, so that's something that you need to specify. Next is measurable. When we say measurable, is there a certain amount of evidence, statistics, certain amount of numbers that you can use as evidence for this topic? Okay, so we can measure it by the amount of evidence that we can find for this topic. Okay, meron doon, medyo mahihirapan kayo maghanap ng evidence, but it's interesting. Celebrities that don't deserve to be famous. Nilagay ko talaga yon. I want to see if any of you believe that there are certain celebrities. Because, guys, given our time, in the world of social media and influencers, di ba, may mga tao talaga na, paano ba sumikat to? Diba? So, how are you going to find evidence as to what we can consider a celebrity? Di ba? So, that's a challenge in finding measurable, di ba? Next is attainable. Is this topic somewhat arguable? Kumbaga, magagawan nyo pa ba siya? Kaya nyo pa bang gawan ng argument? Sorry, may message from... Natawa ko din sa kapatid kong bunso. Sorry. Ayan. So, attainable. Can you somehow still make an argument from this topic? Okay? Is there still something to argue about in this topic? Ganun po. So, for example, sobrang in-specify nyo naman. Yun, legalizing divorce. Sobrang in-specify nyo. Divorce in the context of spousal abuse. Siyempre, kapag yun na yung pinag-uusapan, abuse na yun eh. Sino ba dito mag-a-agree sa inyo na dapat magstay in abusive relationships? Diba? So, hindi na yun attainable. Why? Because there is no more argument there. Trigger warning, this is quite a sensitive topic, but I had a student who, nung hindi pa ako nagbibigay ng pre-approved topics, ang topic niya, Ma'am, I want to write a paper, a position paper about rape. Sabi ko, Bakit? Ma'am, kasi I'm against rape. Sino ba ang hindi against rape? Sige, 'di ba? So hindi na siya attainable. Why? Because there is no more argument against, 'di ba? No one is going to say, "Oh, I agree with people that sometimes people need to be." No. 'Di ba? So I'm sorry again, trigger warning for that. Pero yun nga, if it is attainable, it means that you still have an argument. Meron pa rin kayong ipaglalaban. Okay? Pag wala na kayong ipaglalaban, ibig sabihin, hindi na siya attainable. Next is relevant. Is this something that's still happening today? Is it still an issue that you can still talk to people about, and they will still have opinions about this? Okay? So for example, it doesn't need to be a new issue. For example, sexism, racism, the rights of LGBTQ plus members, Okay? Those are still issues that go on, that have been going on for years and years and years, and they are still relevant. Okay? So, again, if you specify your topic, make sure that it is specific but still relevant. Na meron, if you talk to people about it, if you read about it, there are still differing opinions and there are still evidence of that phenomenon, of that issue happening. Okay? And last, within time constraints. Okay? So, I know that some of you are passionate about your issue, of about some of these issues. Some of you are some of you believe na ganito, ganyan, uh, mabuting mapag-usapan ng mabuti, kailangan ma-research ng maayos, kailangan mailahad ko lahat ng kailangan ko ilahad. Pero of course, we have something called deadline. Okay? So, isipin pa rin natin, will it take too much time for me to research, to argue, to write this about this issue? So, for example, ang gusto mo ay tungkol sa race. If I didn't give you any specific topics, if you were to choose your topic on your own, you chose sexism. And sexism is millennia old. Okay? Napakatagal ng issue ng sexism. At hindi mo in-specify. Okay? Sexism in the 21st century, even that is so broad and long. So, ang tagal mong mag-research, 'di ba? Ang tagal mong maghahanap ng evidence. So, as much as possible, we try to interconnect these criteria. Okay? So, specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant, and within time constraints. Huwag kayong pipili ng topic na 15 years yung i-research. 'Di ba? Nakagraduate na ng college sa mga klase nyo, grade 11 pa rin kayo dahil wala kayong position paper kay Ma'am Jade. Okay? So, ganun po mga anak. Next, in exploring another thing to consider in exploring the issues is you need to look at the pros or advantages and the cons or disadvantages. If I take this issue, what are the advantages? So for example, legalizing babalik-balik tayo sa legalizing divorce because it's one of the current talaga eh. For example, ayun nga, legalizing divorce in the Philippines. The advantages is that it is current, it is relevant, it is very polarizing, meaning that it's still attainable, there is still an argument, there is measurable evidence about that. Ang problema lang is that it's broad and you have the cons or the or the disadvantages is that we have to research the legalities, the laws, 'di ba? The causes and effects. So it's quite time consuming. So you have to weigh the advantages and disadvantages. Hindi pwedeng pipili lang kayo based on, ay, ito pa, it sounds good. Ay, ito interesting to. Ganon. So you have to really consider these things. So that's step 1. Once you have chosen your issue, you have to research. Okay? We can't just choose an issue. Okay, kunwari ang pinili nyo is celebrities that don't deserve to be famous. Ay, meron akong alam na isa. Okay, so napili nyo na yon. Hindi pwedeng kung ano lang yung alam nyo dun sa isang yon. Kailangan you have to research. So, what makes a celebrity? How do we define talent? Okay, how do we say that this person is not deserving to be a celebrity? Okay, so that's how you research. Okay, so this is imperative when you are doing your research, you're gathering your data. Okay, practicein nyo na ngayon kasi magagamit nyo to next time when you are in PR1. Whenever you do research, whenever you have you find evidence on your own, i-outline nyo na agad. So, kahit sabihin natin meron kayong 10 pieces of evidence, hindi lahat nagamit nyo. At least naka-outline na yon. Meron na kayong information bank about this certain topic. Okay? So, there are 2 ways of gathering and researching data. The first way is primary or field research. Primary or field research is what we call first-hand research, wherein kayo mismo yung maghahanap ng information. Okay? So, for example, first is observation. is a tool in gathering information for actual observation of the place or subject in relation to the environment. Um, I used to encourage my students to do this when we were in face to face, because there were students who did not agree with the strictness of the uniform policy in UCC way back when. And they observed, they had talaga nagsulat sila ng letter to be excused from class, from their first class, so that they can observe yung mga bata na hindi pinapapasok dahil hindi maayos yung uniform. And that's how they got the information. That's how they got their evidence. Tapos sinite nila yung quotation ng mga bata saying that, oh, we feel, yung emotions ng bata na, oh, we feel like we've wasted our time, we feel like, we feel frustrated because we just want to go to school, but they won't let us because a part of our uniform isn't proper, mga ganon. So, that's firsthand. You're actually interacting with the source of the information. Ang advantage nito ay first-hand experience. Ang disadvantage is it needs to happen for multiple visits. Kaya hindi pwedeng isang beses lang kayo mag-observe tapos may conclusion na kayo agad. Because sometimes, the context changes, the situation changes, even if the place doesn't change, the people change. So, medyo risky rin siya. Especially now, in the time of the pandemic. Hindi ko naman sasabihin na, oh, lumabas kayo, mag-mall kayo, maggala kayo, mag-observe kayo. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Okay? So, the next type of primary research is what we call interview. Okay, I believe everyone has already knows how an interview looks like, how it goes on. Lahat tayo ay nanonood ng Tony Talks. Minsan-minsan at nakikinig ng mga podcast. Ayan. So an interview is a data gathering tool where data is gathered and is obtained from a knowledgeable person on the topic. Take note, knowledgeable person on the topic. Ibig sabihin na experience or nagawa or napag-aralan niya na yung topic na yon or issue na yon. So for example, if we're talking about, let's say, grammar and English, syempre, ang i-interviewin natin dyan, English teacher. Hindi naman sa pag-aano, pero hindi naman sa pag-aano, pero bakit nyo i-interviewin ang PE teacher tungkol sa something na hindi naman nila specialization? Ganun po ha, knowledgeable. I've been teaching for so many years. I've already experienced a lot of things with my students. Dati may nag-interview. Okay, sige, mag-interview kayo. Ma'am, tungkol po kasi sa poverty, ganyan. Oh, sige, go lang. Ang mga in-interview nila yung mga business owners, yung mga hindi nakaka-experience na magutom. Parang ganon. So, what do they know about that issue if they do not experience that? Okay? So, ganun po. Make sure that the person is knowledgeable on the topic. Yeah. Planning. There are just 4 steps. Planning and setup, note-taking, reflecting on the interview, and writing up your notes. Ngayon nga, hindi na uso yung note-taking pag interview eh. 'Di ba? Recorder na lang. I also recommend that if you're going to have, because next sem you're going to have what we call the quantitative research. And most quantitative researches involve interviews with your respondents. Hindi ma-survey ang quantitative eh. So, pwede kayong mag-record. But of course, with the consent of the interviewee. Okay? Kasi syempre, tanong nyo muna, pwede po ba namin itong i-record? If you can have it in writing, that's better. That way, you don't commit any privacy act, any breaches of privacy. And last, ayan, survey or questionnaire. Okay, I think we all know what a survey or how a survey works. We are given a questionnaire, we answer, and then those results are then summarized to get a certain idea of how this issue is taking place. So, for example, yun nga, yung sa strictness of uniform code, if they are, or the dress code, if they give out a survey, hindi pwedeng 10 lang. Kasi kung ang population natin, there's a certain percentage of the population that we need to take. I won't get into that because that's statistics and I'm an English teacher. So usually we go to 70%. So if there is 1,000, there are 1,000 grade 11 students of UCC this school year. You need to get 700 responses. Different responses ha. Hindi pwedeng yung isa sa inyo, oh magsagot ka ng 100 times. Kasi that will that will what? Uh that will endanger or that will uh sway the results of the survey. We'll talk about that again. We'll talk more about survey next week kasi writing a survey report tayo next week. But just to preempt, if you're going to yun nga conduct a survey, you need to be you need to have a certain amount of the population. Hindi pwedeng 10 na grade 11, 1,000 yung grade 11, so anong percentage lang yan? There's no the validity is being questioned. Okay, ganun po. And next, we have the secondary or library research. This is mostly what you're going to use for this position paper. Again, pwede nyo pong gamitin yung primary. But in the current happenings, in the current situation, I don't encourage you to expose yourself or go out of your way to actually observe and interview or serve or distribute surveys. So as much as possible, we stick with secondary research or library research. If you can do this, kung kaya nyo mag-primary research virtually, like yung interview na sa Google Meet or through phone, go ahead. I won't stop you. But if you are constrained by time, by, of course, the pandemic, by your own health, i-prioritize natin yung health natin. Let's just stick with secondary and library. Sa secondary and library research, the information has already been written about and it already exists. Your job is to look for that information. So kaya nga siya library or secondary research. Pupunta kayo sa library or you're going to our good pal or our good friend Mr. Google and you are going to look for evidence. Yun po, ang secondary research. Step 3. Ayan. So, considering your specific purpose. You have your issue, you have researched on that issue, you know a lot of it. Alam nyo na meron na kayong foundation, you already know what you're trying to fight for. It's time to draft your thesis statement. Okay? It's time to think about what is your central idea and what exactly are you trying to present or propose in your position paper. Ano na yung gusto nyong sabihin sa reader ninyo? Okay? So, your thesis statement must be strong because you are presenting a very strong opinion. Okay? So, first, your thesis statement must take some sort of stand. First, okay? Yung thesis statement nyo, kailangan dun pa lang alam ko na if you believe in or if you don't believe in, if you agree or disagree, if you are pro or anti, if you don't think that Alden Richards should be a celebrity, go. Okay? If you watch the past videos that I've given you, you may think, segue to ha, you may think that I have an issue with Alden Richards. Wala po. Siya lang yung lagi kong naiisip when people, when I think of celebrity. Bakit lagi kong naiisip si Alden Richards? I don't know why. Okay? So, yun po. But that album should never have happened. Yun lang. Okay. Stop na ako. Balik tayo sa lesson. So, next is, it justifies discussion. Your thesis statement should justify discussion, meaning that it still has to be arguable. When we say arguable, it still has to have a certain amount of opposing opinion. Katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, you can't fight on issues that is already accepted to be universally wrong or universally right. Of course, hindi nyo pwedeng sabihin na ang issue nyo ay hindi pwedeng ang stand nyo is, I believe that donating to charity is is good. Siyempre, universally accepted na charity is good, 'di ba? I believe that abuse is bad. Of course, that's a universally accepted. It no longer justifies discussion. So find a stand, find an issue, specify something about your issue that justifies discussion. Next, express one's main idea. Okay? Isa lang po ang main idea natin. Hindi pwedeng dalawa, hindi pwedeng tatlo. You can't have more than one main idea in your thesis statement for a position paper. Why? Because you will be lost yourself. Ay, wait, ano ba yung main idea ko? Ano ba yung sinabi ko? Ano ba yung stand ko talaga? Kahit si reader, mako-confuse siya. Ano ba gustong sabihin nito? Is she pro? Or is she anti? Is she in between? Remember that going back to the first characteristic, in writing a position paper, you have to take some sort of stance. So, hindi pwedeng maybe. Yes or no lang. Okay? Next is, a strong thesis statement is specific. Okay? You need to specify. You need to use your words. Express specifically what you believe in. Express specifically what you think is right and what you think is wrong about that certain issue. Again, if you're going to talk about racism or divorce or anything, is it the causes and effects? Is it the legalization? Is it the emotional effects? Okay, are you going to talk about, are you against divorce because it is against religion? Are you against divorce because of the emotional impact? Are you against divorce because of the implication that it will ruin the sanctity of marriage? So you have to be specific why you are pro or why you are against that certain issue. Okay? And last, a strong thesis statement considers the audience of the paper. Huwag kayong puro kayo lang. Yes, of course, this is your own opinion, this is your position, this is your stance. But you have to consider that the audience of the paper is you're appealing to them. They are the main purpose of why you are writing. You should give them, so you should consider how the audience will feel about this thesis statement. Okay? And of course, you have to consider, is this thesis statement believable enough? Okay? Yan po. So, next we have step 4. Step 4 is the shortest step to discuss, but one of the longest steps that you're going to do while writing. It's developing your reasoning, or what we call argumentation. When we say argumentation, it presents the opinion or a position on a controversial topic to the reader. It explains, clarifies, and illustrates that opinion or position. Mag-a-argue na kayo. And those arguments are being supported by your citations and your evidence. So, for example, I believe that if you say in your argument or your reasoning that the children are our future, tapos sinite nyo yung quote ni Jose Rizal. Okay? Binagbigay kayo ng citation. That's your reasoning. Okay? Hindi po at tandaan, sa bawat argument, hindi po sapat na isang evidence lang. We try to give at least a minimum of 2 supporting statements for each argument. That way, we can still see how sound and how logical each argument is. Okay? Hindi pwedeng sabihin nyo, mas masarap ang Jollibee. Bakit? Basta mas masarap ang Jollibee. Hindi pwedeng ganun. Okay? You have to give sound and logical arguments. You have to give supporting statements to your arguments. In step 4, this is when you're going to start outlining and drafting na. Okay? Whether I don't know what your process is, I personally outline my position papers back in college and back in high school. I used to parang ina-organize ko siya. For example, argument number 1, ito yung mga support. along with the evidence. Argument number 2, ito yung mga support along with the evidence. And sometimes, each argument will get its own paragraph. That's to solidify the clarity of each argument. Kasi pag sama-sama mo lahat ng argument at evidence sa isang paragraph, ang hirap basahin yan, di ba? So, it is your own preference or your own style how you're going to develop this. But as much as possible, you need to develop your reasoning along with finding evidence. If your argument does not have any evidence to back it up, eliminate the argument. Rephrase, rethink. Hindi po evidence ang hindi po evidence ang mag-a-adjust sa argument ninyo. Argument ang dapat nag-a-adjust sa evidence. Okay? Ganun po. Next, step This is supposed to be sorry. Step 5. Okay, step 4 pa rin to, sorry. It persuades your argumentation should persuade the reader that the opinion or position you're supported is valid by 1, moving the reader to action, meaning that they have been, when we say moved to action, they have been, naantig sila. Maybe some of you have experienced this when you've watched a video or you've read something very persuasive that even when you're watching a commercial na, ay, mapabili nga ng ganyan. Diba? So, that's moving to action. So, that's one thing that we can aim for. Another thing we can aim for is convincing the reader that the position is correct. Okay? Ito yung sinasabi ko. We can persuade them na hindi, ay, tama pala si Trisha. Tama si Faith. Tama si Justine. Tama si Avril. Tama si Neil. Sa mga opinion nila. Okay? And next is persuading the reader to at least consider. To at least think that your position or your opinion is valid and worth considering. So, itong mga to, hindi kailangan lahat ma-achieve natin. Our aim is to achieve at least one of these things. And even if you achieve number 3, just have them consider. Basta, wag lang silang maging so closed-minded sa kanilang opinion. That is a big achievement on your part as a writer. Because through your words, you have what? You have given them a new point of view. You have changed their minds about something that they were previously closed-minded about. Okay? Nakaka-proud kaya yun kapag nabasa ko yung position paper ng students ko, tapos napaano ako, ay, tama naman pala siya. Even if I don't personally agree with that, they have a point. That's good. Because with years and years of doing this, I can sense in your writing how passionate you were about that and that's something that I take great amount of pride in. Nakaka-proud 'yun sa part ko na kayo, napaproud ako sa inyo kasi nga you're so passionate about it that you fought for it through your writing, diba? That's something that you should consider always when you are writing, not even in a position paper, in any type of writing. Okay? Next, as a writer, you must support your position with means of giving evidence. So, ma-achieve natin tong tatlong to or one of these 3 if we have these. Because again, we are also appealing to the logical side of our audiences. So we have facts, examples, physical descriptions, support of authority or people who are an authority or knowledgeable about that certain topic, and of course, statistics. Ako, personally, pag nakakita ko ng number dyan, ay, 70% of all ganito ganyan ang ate mo gumamit ng number. Pag nakikita ko ng number, medyo nalulula ako, pero na-impress ako because they took the time. Kasi not all issues have statistics. Not all evidence can be expressed in statistics. But if you can find that, if you can scour through kasi kayo, tagilan na po natin yung Google. First result. Okay na yan. Wag po ganun. Hanap po kayo ng ano. Kasi ang algorithm ng Google, syempre, kung ano yung pinaka-popular, kung ano yung may most clicks, yun yung lumalabas. But sometimes, hindi yun yung pinakatama. Especially if you're looking for subjective evidence. Okay? And last, ayan. The readers must see sound and logical arguments to make a conclusion and take your stance. So to achieve this and these, ito po ang gagamitin natin. Okay, facts and examples. You can also use pictures as evidence. Yung mga this is what I learned from YouTube makeup drama na finalo namin ng mga kapatid ko noon. Yung kay Jeffree Star, if you're familiar with that. They have screenshots. 'Di ba? In slang, give us the receipts. Okay? Yun lang yung hinahanap natin, the receipts. When we say the receipts, the proof. So you can give pictures. Okay? So you can show like, for example, ang topic nyo is yung sa extrajudicial killings. Huwag naman masyadong brutal, pero pwede kayong mag-show ng mga pictures ng yung crime scene, ganon. Yeah, receipts. Yung pictures ng crime scene, yung picture nung galing sa, as long as you cite, kung, syempre hindi naman kayo ang kumuha ng picture na yun, i-cite nyo lang kung saan nyo kinuha yung picture. Yan. Next, this is supposed to be step 5. So, anticipating and generating counter arguments. This is quite like in a debate situation when you are actually thinking of, ay, ano ba yung pwedeng isagot sa akin? Ano ba yung pwedeng ikontra nila sa argument na to? And then, from that, you're going to think of ways to, hindi pa nila nasasabi, na kontra mo na agad. Okay? A position paper is quite long because we anticipate our counter-arguments and we already refute them in advance. Kasi tandaan nyo, this is mostly like a debate. But, the person you're debating with is not going to answer. So, what happens then? You're going to anticipate what they're going to, how they're going to counter your argument, and you're going to give your own counter arguments. Okay? You're going to give your own refutations. Okay? You're going to refute those arguments on your own, which is part 2 of step 6. Okay? So, step 6 is refuting counter arguments. So, sa step 6.1, sorry medyo magulo yung numbering. So, step 6.1, sa step 5, you're anticipating counter arguments. Sa step 5, you're anticipating counter arguments. Okay? Pag na-anticipate nyo na, you've already thought about what they're going to throw at you, what they're going to say after reading your argument. Refute na. Okay, refutation, hindi po ito yung album ni Taylor Swift. Ayan, refutation is the process of discrediting arguments. When we say discrediting, you are making sure that the audience knows. Let me fix these slides kasi ano siya. Wait lang. Medyo wala siya sa center, sabi ko na nga ba. Ayan. Ayan. Okay. So, sorry, yung OCD ko maano. Ayan. So, when we say refutation, we are discrediting. The act of discrediting, make sure that your opponent's counter-arguments are less valid. Okay? So, pwede tayong mag-refute by doing 3 things. By saying 3 things. Or by proving that first, their argument or counter-argument is incorrect. So, yung counter-argument or yung pwedeng sabihin nila ay mali dahil misleading or incorrect or from the wrong, or they are giving the wrong sense of evidence, or it is a logical fallacy. Okay? You can say that. Of course, you need evidence to provide that it is incorrect. Next, you can say that it is irrelevant. You can show in your paper or write in your paper that the counter-argument is inappropriate and unrelated. When we say inappropriate and unrelated, walang kinalaman dun sa argument na meron kayo ngayon. So, if you're talking about divorce and the legal, specifically the legalization of divorce through the Philippine government, And the counter argument of that is always religion and the church. You can say that that counter argument is irrelevant. Why? Because there is a separation of church and state according to our constitution. 'Di ba? So that's your refutation. And last is insufficient. When we say that a counter argument is insufficient, it is weak because there is no amount of there is no there is not enough amount of information, and there is no significant information about what they are saying. So for example, yun nga, we don't divorce shouldn't be legalized because it traumatizes children. There is not enough evidence to to support that it traumatizes children. Maybe it traumatizes children because the process of divorce is kung for example, there are some processes of divorce that are very messy, very stressful, both on the parents and the children. But it's not the divorce that's doing that. It's the interaction of both parents. Siyempre nakikita nila lagi nag-aaway yung magulang nila. Yun yung nakaka-traumatize. Hindi yung divorce mismo. Yes, the custody battles are also very very stressful. But it is not the divorce itself. So that's a weak argument because there is not enough information. In fact, if I remember correctly, there is a article I read years ago that it is more traumatizing to children if their parents did not get sa Amerika to. Kung away lang ng away yung parents pero hindi nag-divorce because they're staying for the kids. Yung konsepto na wag tayong maghiwalay dahil sa mga bata. Mas traumatizing yun kasi parang they can't get out of this stressful, this bad situation because of me. So parang mas traumatized yung bata nun. Okay? So those are the things you can do. You can prove that it is incorrect, irrelevant, or insufficient to make sure that you are discrediting their counter arguments. Okay? So tandaan, step 5, when we anticipate our counter arguments, we make sure that these are valid counter arguments and ito talaga ay sinasabi ng mga tao na opposed sa opinion ninyo. Okay? Baka mamaya gawa-gawa lang kayo ng mga You're also going to research this. Hindi kayo pwedeng maggawa-gawa lang ng mga counter arguments. Okay? So, once you have your counter arguments, you start refuting them. And last, ayan na. Step 7 is drafting your position paper. So in drafting your position paper, you have to make sure that all parts, introduction, body, and conclusion, are in sync and coherent to contribute to the overall content of the paper. Ayan. So the following questions will serve as your guide. These are just guide questions. You don't need to hindi kailangan masyadong isa puso, but they will help you get your bearings, or they will help you organize the thoughts in your paper correctly. So for example, how shall I open the essay? Ano yung pwede yung sabihin, ano yung pwede yung isulat to get your reader's attention immediately. Next, should I begin with identifying the controversy and stating my thesis? Or should I begin with a rhetorical question, a surprising example, a personal anecdote, or a startling statistics? Okay? So, sasabihin mo na ba agad yung stance mo, or should I have a little bit more of introduction before I give my thesis statement? Okay? So, kayo po bahala doon. Next is, how much do I need to explain? Gaano karami ba ako? Is my reader already very knowledgeable about this topic? Do I need to over-explain myself? So, you have to think about that. Should I summarize the facts? Should I summarize both sides? Eto, pwede natin gamitin to, summarizing both sides for a very when the issue itself is somewhat vague and polarizing, na talagang nagbabanggaan na yung dalawang sides. That way, the reader also has the point of view of the other side. But, you're still firmly supporting your own side. Ayan. So, that's... Excuse me. Saka nalalamunan ko, sorry. Ayan, so that is the last step of writing a position paper, which is drafting. So from the beginning, and this is the introduction. So in the body, you'll just follow the steps from 4 to 6. Yeah. And then the conclusion, uh, the same as the conclusions before when in the action and art critique, wherein you give an overall summary and an overall statement about your opinion and your position. Okay? So yan po. So we won't be dwelling too much on the APA 7th edition because I already gave you this as an asynchronous lesson in the last week of December. But here are the sort of overview of the APA 7th. So first, again, it is the 7th edition, which was implemented in 2020 last year. It's a system it's an author date system, so your in-text reference for all formats consists of author surname, and year of publication. It is widely accepted in the social sciences. Again, academics is part of the social sciences. And APA citation format requires citation within the text rather than endnotes or footnotes. Kaya siya tinatawag na in-text citation. Now, I do have to warn you that when we are using citations, when we are citing sources, we do have a statute of limitations. When we say statute of limitations, it is the length or the age of the evidence that we're using. So for APA and for most citations, we do have a 10-year limit. So kung 2009 yung evidence ninyo, questionable na yung validity niyan. Because again, knowledge changes. And as more evidence goes by, so does the information. So, magkakaroon tayo ng mga Yun. So, kapag nakita ko yung position paper nyo, with the exception, of course, of historical accounts. Siyempre, alangan namang hanapan ko pa kayo ng historical account ng nangyari noong 1940s na 10 years old lang, di ba? Exception yun, yung mga historical account as evidence. Pero yun nga, yung mga books, journals, articles, and web documents, we try to keep them within 10 years. Okay? Things to remember. In-text citation usually include the name of the author and the date of publication to lead reader to the references. We'll talk about writing a reference list later on in the semester. Next is complete information about each source is cited in the references. Ayan. So, ganito po ang itsura ng isang in-text citation. Ayan. So, Kohler, in 2016, noted the dangers of falsely balanced news coverage. Okay? In rare cases, the date might both appear in the narrative. Ayan. So, in 2016, the Kohler ganyan. So, that's still in-text citation. But the second one is not APA. So, ito po ang APA. Yan po ang format na sinusunod natin sa APA. So, ayan. So, if citing a particular page or chapter, pwede rin tayong maglagay ng pages. But again, in the 7th edition, hindi na natin ito masyadong ginagawa. So, how do we use this? First of all, we're not going to copy and paste. Hindi po porket nilagyan nyo ng ng citation, hindi na siya copy-paste. So, what you're going to do is you're going to read the article, get the information that you need, paraphrase that information, and then put it in your paper with the citation. Kasi tandaan nyo, hindi nyo yan original idea. Okay? Since that is evidence, that is something that has already that is an idea that has already existed. You are just rephrasing it to support your opinion. So make sure that when you are using citation, you are not copying and pasting the evidence. You are understanding you need to understand the evidence, read it carefully, and then paraphrase it into your own words, tapos saka nyo lalagyan ng citation. Ganun po. Okay? So, ayan. Ayan. So, ito po itsura ng isang entry sa reference list. Again, I will discuss that to you later on in the semester. So, ayan. So, meron tayong dalawang klase, ang parenthetical at ang narrative. So, let me go back. So, this is an example of a narrative citation. Nasa labas yung pangalan ni author. Nasa labas siya ng parentheses. Pero, pwede rin tayong gumamit ng parenthetical, wherein nasa loob parehas yung pangalan ni author at yung date. Now, when we are using narrative, tuloy-tuloy lang siya kasi nga narrative. So, tuloy-tuloy lang. So, pwede natin sabihin according to caller in 26, according to caller, parenthesis 2016, noted, ganyan-ganyan. Or, yan, wala nang according kasi may noted na. Okay? So, o kaya, caller stated in 2016, the danger zone. Tapos, kapag gumagamit kayo ng parenthetical, nasa hulihan lagi siya ng statement. Okay? Nasa last part of the statement lagi siya. Ano, it can appear within or at the end of the sentence. So, ito po, ayan po. Again, ito po ay nandun sa video natin on the APA citation. Ayan. So, tandaan, kapag ganitong mga may abbreviations, pag first citation, buo muna. American Psychological Association, tapos naka-square brackets yung kanilang abbreviation. Kapag po sila ay second na, wala na po yung buo, diretso na tayo ng APA. Second and subsequent, or second or sumusunod na citations. Kapag group author na walang abbreviation, katulad ng, University of California, kasi maraming mga association na ganyan. Ayaw nila na ina-abbreviate yung kanilang pangalan. So, ganyan pa rin. Okay? Next is, kapag walang author, we use what? The title of the article. So, ganun din po sa narrative. So, sa narrative, ganun pa rin ang itsura. Hindi ko lang nalagay dito. Ganun pa rin yung itsura niya. New drug, tapos nasa loob ng In the article, new drug in 1997, ganun. Okay? So, ganyan po ang ating mga formats. Again, alam ko naman na na-practice nyo na to within our asynchronous activity. So, we're going to give it a try. We're going to do this. We're going to practice. So, our synchronous activity will be done by house. So, alam nyo na kung ano yan. Alam nyo na yung mga houses nyo. So, each house will be given rival products or a product that they will need to search factual information about. So, you're going to search on Google or any search engine that you would like. And then, you're going to have factual information. For example, Jollibee, yung stocks ng Jollibee. So you're gonna go to the website of the Philippine Stock Exchange or what have you, and you're going to look for certain pieces of evidence or certain things that prove that that the product that has been assigned to you is a good product. Tapos, ilalagay nyo siya sa PowerPoint presentation. Ideally, each part of each piece of evidence will have its own slide. Okay? Tapos, syempre, gagamitan nyo siya ng proper in-text citations. Okay? And then, each group will have a representative to read and explain their slides as they are trying to persuade their classmates. Okay? So, yan po. Okay? Before you go on to your own groups, ito po ang ating assignment. So, House Samson, Jollibee Products, Elijah, you have McDonald's, Joseph, Coca-Cola, House Barnabas, Pepsi, House Gamaliel, Ajinomoto, Ginisa Mix, and House Philip, Maggie's Magic Sarap. So, you'll have to, minimum of 5 pieces of information with in-text citation. Ganun po. Okay? So, I'll give you 20 minutes to do this. I believe that is doable or that is achievable. So, that's going to be our synchronous activity for today. Okay. So, that's it for our synchronous activity. I'll assign this in your Google Classroom so you can pass your PPTs later on. I'll hopefully within I'll give you the deadline later on. Okay? So, yan. So, reminders, of course, today, we have a 10-item quiz. It will be assigned later on. Madali lang po siya. It's multiple choice. Some are true or false. Some you have to identify whether the citation is narrative or parenthetical. Hindi po kailangan mangopya, pero kailangan mag-review. So, for our asynchronous activity naman po, ayan. So, our asynchronous activity, you're going to write your own position paper and you're going to choose from these topics. So first, legalizing divorce in the Philippines. Of course, again, kayo na po ang mag-i-specify on how you're going to, uh, on your stance, your point of view, what have you. Okay? Providing aid and shelter to the refugees from the Middle East. As we know, Pakistan, Afghanistan, those who are affected by the Taliban, namumroblema po sila kung saan pupunta yung mga citizens nila. So, do we provide aid? Are we going to help? Next, ito, relevant na relevant. Who should be the next president of the Philippines? So, how are you going to defend your political beliefs? Next, not so pressing, but again, another issue that we need to address. Celebrities or a celebrity that do not deserve to be famous. Meron ba? Sino? And why? Okay? Again, specify nyo lang. And next, laws or a law that should be changed. Okay? What do you think, are there any laws or policies in the Philippines that you think should be changed because of XYZ reason? Okay? Next, we have, ayan, of course, the main directions, write a position paper about the topic you chose. It must contain three paragraphs with 5 or above sentences each. Ayan, binibigyan ko na kayo ng minimums para meron tayong standard. Because again, we need to give ample support and ample evidence for each argument. Note that plagiarism and not following instructions will result to a lower grade. Buti nga, lower lang, hindi natin isa-zero, but again, I'm using a plagiarism checker for my Google Classroom, so mahuhuli rin po kayo. Wag niyo na pong balakin. So next is follow the guidelines from the lesson given, and of course, apply the citation style that we learned about today. Okay, so these instructions are given in the posting, which I will be assigning to you right now. So, ayan po ang ating, ayan po, we have a rubric. I'll show you the rubric right now. So, we have the introduction or the attention grabber, the focus or the thesis statement, the support or for the position, of course, evidence and examples with proper use of APA's 7th edition citations, the sequencing or organization of ideas, and of course, the closing paragraph or the conclusion. So we have 6 criteria, 5 points each for a total of 30 points for this activity. Okay, so I will be assigning this to you. There we go. Yeah. Sorry. Why did I open? Sorry. So, ayan po ang ating asynchronous activity for this week. So, a little bit of reminders lang po what I want to see in your paper. Of course, I want to see that you followed the guidelines and the instructions, the use of APA style citation 7th edition, the details and information about the chosen topic, and of course, I don't want to see any copying and pasting. I'm going to check whether or not you copied and pasted from any work from a source. Okay? So tandaan, hindi po porket may citation, hindi na siya copy paste. Okay? Kailangan i-rephrase po natin si evidence bago natin siya lagyan ng citation. So again, this is the rubric that we're going to use. Yeah. Do you have any questions about the activity, the quiz, anything? Mga anak. Nothing? Okay. So if you don't have any more questions or concerns or violent reactions about the asynchronous activity and the quiz, I will be That's it for today. I hope that you've learned something about writing a position paper. If you do have any concerns, you may email me at my work email, jdomingo@ucc.ph. Thank you for listening.